Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the next session and the last one. We are going to talk about another prominent issue in navigating the relation between Indonesia and Australia, which is about the execution of Australian drug dealers, the so-called Bali 9 drug dealers in 2015. And Mr. Ambassador, when you were there, it happened. Bali 9 drug dealers execution in 2015. Can you share with us what was going on at the time between Indonesian government and Australian government? Because there was a wave of protest, not only in Indonesia. I remember at the time there were like big congregation, Australian people or Indonesian people here that protest against the policy, but I believe perhaps in the embassy in Canberra as well, there were always like a protest or media attention towards this issue. How can you share with us about this incident?
Well, in Canberra and also in other places in Australia, the issue was so big because it's not only because of the fact that 2 Australians will be executed by Indonesian, but it is also a dramatization from the media, from TV, from newspapers, from other online media. So it was a very special moment between the 2 countries. I was summoned, to defend, and one day this is a good story to tell. During the Australian Day in February, all the diplomatic corps were gathered in quarter of the Prime Minister in the Parliament House. And then, the secretary of the Prime Minister, walked through this the crowd of diplomatic or ambassadors, which were gathered there, and then he came to me, and in front of some colleague, I remember some ambassadors, we just discussed at that time, and then the secretary of Prime Minister Tony Abbott came to me and said, "Ambassador, Prime Minister would like very much to meet you in his private chamber." And then everybody just look at me, and then what kind of discussion are going through between Nadjib and Prime Minister Abbott. And then we went up to the private chamber of the Prime Minister, and there was a Prime Minister, sitting on the sofa, and said, "Well, Nadjib, my friend, how are you?" "Well, I'm fine, thank you, Tony, and how are you?" And well, we discussed a bit, and then he said, "Nadjib, is there still any possibility, for your president to hold to stop the execution to be taken place in March or April?" Well, I said, "Prime Minister," I said, "maybe it will be difficult because it has been announced by the government, and then most importantly that we are now in the situation of drug emergency in Indonesia, where so many young people died because of drugs, and then so every single drugs dealers like this, doing operation in Indonesia will be prosecuted very, very badly by Indonesia," I said. And then Prime Minister said, "All right, Nadjib, but please tell your president and please tell your foreign minister and also your chief of justice about this, about the aspiration of the Australian people."
Right.
And that's what happened. This is This is from the very top. And then at the time, I visited Perth, because I had a meeting with the AIBC, Australia Indonesia Business Council, and I gave a speech at that time. And one of the questions is also about this. Why does Indonesia, killing these people? Why do Indonesia try to, and a lot of question, which is, I think it's and then I said, well, my friend, we are not trigger happy. We are not the people who wanted to kill anybody, but all of this, all the execution is with a special reason. So that's the situation, And then when I met the premier of Western Australia, when I met with other prominent members of Australia, they always mention about this. Please hold this. Please stop. Please and everything.
Right.
So that's the situation.
I see. So it was quite a tense relation at the time.
Indeed.
In regards to Bali 9 drug dealers execution, and during that time, 2015 as well, Bapak, the ambassador of Australia to Indonesia was withdrawn. I remember looking at the news when Prime Minister and Tony Abbott at the time, right? And then the Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, recalled the ambassador from Indonesia for a couple of weeks.
Yes, that's right.
How did you manage the situation at the time? And my sub-question to that was that, did this incident also affect other aspect of relation between Indonesia and Australia in economic front, for example? Because maybe we had IACEPA, if you can connect the dots.
Yeah, that's right. We can connect it, of course, with that. But as a background, during that time, ambassador of Australia was withdrawn to Canberra,
right?
And for about 4 weeks, if I'm mistaken. And then we also discussed about the how to resolve so many problems of the two countries. But of course, the IACPA, the other relations, plan, visit, and most of them are, a little bit held at the time, because of this situation.
Okay.
And then we, the Indonesian embassy in Canberra, after the execution, a lot of journalists wanted to interview me, but at the time, because so many statements has been distorted, in many ways, by the media. So I chose not to talk to the journalists. Instead, we made a press release. In this press release, we put at least 3 points. The first point was we express our condolence to the family of Mr. Myuran, Sukumaran, and Nadjib. And then number 2, we also stated that the Indonesian government understand, why the people of Australia are so, the emotional outrages, coming up, and then because of the situation. But number 3, that is very important for Indonesia. We stated that Indonesia is in a drug emergency, where about 30 to 40 young people die every day because of drugs. And then the culprits of this are the drug dealers. And that's the statement that I made. And I think at that time, every single media, put my statements, and then covered my statement and then put it in, and then it's ease the tense a little bit because of I give the balance, between the sad situation by the Australian and then also the sad situation by the Indonesian.
Right. So I guess I think it was undoubtedly easy for Indonesian government and you to actually maintain the relationship in the wake of this incident in 2015. But I also remember, Bapak, during this period of time, there was an election, right, in Australia that made a transition between the government of Tony Abbott at the time to Turnbull. What was the effect towards managing this issue?
Actually, it was not the election, Paniwa, but it was, a kind of, like internal coup d'etat,
right.
inside the party.
Yeah.
So that's why it's, and then Malcolm Turnbull came up as the new leader.
The new leader.
And then, after Malcolm Turnbull was there, he really tried to do the best, to approach again Indonesia. And only in maybe 2 months after his official officiating as the Prime Minister, he visited Indonesia in November.
Okay.
And that's, we just try to, to lift the burden out of our way, and we try to build a new path of relation for the future. Pak Jokowi at the time brought Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull to Tanah Abang, and then he can, experience the real energy of the Indonesian people and the welcoming approach by all the people in Pasar Tanah Abang to him,
right.
And he was so touched, And that's the beginning of the new chapter of the relations between the two countries.
Interesting. So, re-establishing a genuine trust between the two governments, including the leader of our two countries, seemed to be one important factor in navigating the challenges, resolving the incident in 2015. But during this almost 5 years tenure of your leadership and ambassadorship in Australia, there has been a number of incidents that we talked about that affect, and firstly, in a way, towards the relation between two countries, Indonesia and Australia. What would be your takeaways that you can tell and share with us to our young foreign policy enthusiasts, as well as academicians there and experts, in order to to maintain the relationship between two countries that has been ups and momentarily low? What's your policy advice to us?
Relations between Indonesia and Australia should be good. That is mantra number one. Because we had this time by the God to live next
side by side. Yeah.
And it is very important to maintain the relations in a good shape, because otherwise it's a loss, for Indonesia, and it's a loss for Australia if you don't have the good relations. Because for Australia, of course, Indonesia is a very important, strategically Indonesia is very important. For Indonesia, Australia is very important. We imported wheat and grains for Australia, and we made a very good number one noodles, to be exported around the world. and the grains are coming from there. And we also have a very good relations and collaborations in red meat and cattle industry, for instance. We have a lot of things, and then the research and development that I mentioned earlier, research and development universities, and then also the skills that we can standardize, for the benefit of the Indonesian workers.
Right. So, as you said, it's quite a destiny that Indonesia and Australia will continue its strategic partnership
Yes.
at economic or political security fronts. So it's important for us, but at the same time, it's important for us to understand the dynamics and to understand each other, ya Pak, ya,
Indeed.
to maintain a genuine trust and relationship between the two countries. Thank you very much, Bapak. There is no one else we can learn about the dynamic relation between Indonesia and Australia, but with you as the first prominent figure, but also the first-hand diplomacy practitioner to understand about the relation between the two countries. And before we close, do you have any last words that you want to say to our FPCA friends and colleagues out there, Bapak?
Yes, from 35 years of experience as Indonesian diplomats.
Right.
I think the most important thing for all of us is stating that Indonesia is friends of everybody. Indonesia is friends of everyone. Indonesia is also part of the dynamics of the world, and we are ready to become participants in making the world a better place to live in.
Okay, thank you very much,
Thank you so much.
Nadjib. It's truly an honor for me to be able to talk with you, to have an open discussion candidly, and we learn a lot from you, and we hope that you and your colleagues at the Diplomatic Corps will continue to strive for the best in fighting for our national interest in Indonesia. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fanny.